Welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast where we pit two or more fictional characters against each other in a battle of strength, or wits, or bad role modeling for youths that take fiction too seriously, and see who would win. This week, Judge Dredd versus V. It is the year 1984. The place, Airstrip One, a province of the superstate Oceania. It is a peaceful place, watched over by Big Brother, or rather, it was peaceful, until a double plus ungood agent of terror, known only as V, began to destroy ministry buildings and inter-party property, and what can only be a fit of insanity. Thankfully, a hero of goodthink, Judge Dredd, has been assigned to locate and escort this V to the Ministry of Love, where he will be cured of his sickness. Looks like things are getting dicey over in Airstrip One. Does the Fawkes-faced revolutionary have what it takes to liberate the people of this dystopian version of the UK? Or will Officer Joseph Dredd wind up being V's judge, jury, and executioner? I do not yet know, and that is why I, Kit Mulcairn, am your tyrannical, disembodied voice of truth for today.
I think that might be our shortest setup ever.
I know. They've been bloating like crazy. I know I am potentially to blame for that as well. But
Potentially.
Yeah.
Have you listened to the Star Wars episode?
Hey, they haven't heard the uncut version. It's way worse.
Yeah, the special edition.
Oh,
I
man.
wasn't sure if that was too
With
short,
added CGI.
but
No, it was great.
No, it's great.
Okay.
You got to the point and you got out.
I mean-
like a good writer.
what more do you
Yeah.
need? Advocating for Team V are Dan Mulcairn
Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun.
and Miles Schneiderman.
Remember the 28th of Febtember. The smashing, the fiction, the mic drop. I know of no reason why the dystopian future representation of the gunpowder treason should ever lose to discount RoboCop.
Wow.
Speaking
Mic
of
drop indeed.
bloated,
Advocating for Team Dredd are Colin Mulcairn
Incorrect citation of quotes is an automatic fail. Using evidence from a film that contradicts the original comic books is an automatic fail. Comparing any character to a god is an automatic fail. You ready, rookie? Your assessment starts now.
and Liz Logan.
that was my Stallone impression.
Yep. Yeah, we got that. We got that.
In order to determine who goes first this week, I had each team escorted to room 101 in the Ministry of Love in order to have them re-educated.
Not the rats!
Team B were the first to betray each other in the face of their greatest fears.
Hell yeah.
And that makes them winners in my book. So, they'll be going first this week.
I'm so glad, Dan, that under the spreading cherry tree, I sold you. And you
Oh, you have no idea how happy I am when we decided
Yep.
to do this in 1984.
sold.
Team B, now that you've been cured, re-educate the other team.
Before I started doing my research, I was pretty worried about this one. I mean, we're up against Judge Dredd here, man, right? Like, this guy's a total badass. Like, I was wondering if we even had a chance, and then I actually started reading Judge Dredd comics, and I felt so much better. The more I read, the more I thought to myself, what, that's it? That's what Dredd brings to the table? He's basically a highly trained sci-fi cop with zero superhuman abilities and a hard-ass attitude. Sure, he's the most feared judge in Mega City 1, but have you seen Mega City 1? Crime is rampant. It's everywhere. The place is a hellhole. Dredd can't even clean up his own city, let alone stop the ultimate anarchist.
Yeah, and V is basically his universe's version of a super soldier. The experiments done to him in the Larkle concentration camp gave him superhuman levels of strength, agility, and toughness. He's strong enough to push his fingers into a person's chest. He carries Louis Prothero, a guy who looks like he weighs in excess of 300 pounds, off a train and back to his base by himself, and he's able to move quickly enough to take out multiple opponents, all of whom are armed with guns and know he's coming. When it comes to stealth, V is without equal. In the comic, he sneaks aboard a moving train, single-handedly stops it, and in complete silence takes out several guards in the same car, one at a time, without alerting any of them. And these were Fingermen, the feared secret police of Norsefire. V is incredibly deadly with blades, and his costume is tricked out with concealed tear gas dispensers, fake hands that conceal intensely powerful explosives, and any number of hidden weapons, gadgets, and tools. But of course, V's greatest weapon by far is his mind. He escapes the concentration camp by turning garden supplies into explosives. In a small handful of years after his escape, he becomes so good at computers that he can hack into Fate, the central and all-seeing computer of the central government, and use it against the government itself.
In contrast, Dredd's mind is painfully limited. I mean, besides being a fairly regular human, or clone of a human or whatever, his biggest weakness is his absolute devotion to the law. He will pick up any random citizen committing some tiny crime when he might be doing more worthwhile things. He can beat up small-time criminals, but he has a really hard time putting away the power players in Mega City 1. During a lot of Dredd stories, most notably the Mega Racket series, the theme that gets hammered over and over again is that Dredd's job will never be finished, because he can't bring evidence against the upper echelons of the criminal element. He wastes his time crushing low-level thugs while the real bad guys laugh in his face. For example, when he tries to take down the Body Sharks, top Rackets boss Remington Ratner thwarts him via the cunning use of lawyers. Another judge says to him, "You're stumped, Dredd. You can pick up the minnows in the Body Shark operation, but never the big fish himself." That's because Dredd isn't a detective. He doesn't collect evidence. He doesn't put himself in the mindset of the criminals he faces to better understand how they think. He jumps into any given situation with nothing but bravado and an ammo belt, instead of using any modicum of intelligence or strategy. In the Judge Death Lives story, after Judges Death, Mortis, Fire, and Fear retreat to their own world, Dead World, creatively named, Dredd and Psy Judge Anderson follow them there without any semblance of a plan, with Dredd admitting that they are at a disadvantage but they have no choice in the matter. When they confront the four dark judges, Anderson says, "Come up with any ideas yet, Dredd?" To which Dredd replies, "Not a one. We'll just have to play this by ear, Anderson." So, they attack the dark judges with bullets, which are useless, and Judge Fire incapacitates Dredd with a flaming pitchfork. If Anderson hadn't been able to unexpectedly harness the psychic power of the tormented souls of Deadworld, they both would have been toast because Dredd just rushed in blindly like he always does.
Now, part of what makes V so incredibly dangerous as a mastermind is his uncanny ability to figure out and understand the way his targets work. He acts with perfect understanding of a situation, and that makes his plans basically unstoppable. In the comic, V manages to both totally eliminate Norsefire's ability to spy on its citizens, and also to hijack the government's own broadcasting system, sending out his own message instead. And at the same time, V manages to turn the entire inner circle of Norsefire against itself and cause an otherwise unassailable foe to break itself apart from the inside. So once V understands Dredd, and this won't take long when you consider Dredd's direct bluntness and V's brilliance, V will turn Dredd into an unwitting instrument of anarchy. Dredd won't understand that he's being manipulated, of course, but that's exactly what will be happening. Maybe Dredd will hear of some crime being committed on the East End while V makes his move in Hammersmith. Maybe Dredd learns of V's secret hideout and charges in, guns blazing, to a secret brothel frequented by Ingsoc party leaders. Maybe the navigation system on Dredd's Lawmaster motorcycle mysteriously malfunctions, leaving Dredd stranded in the outer boroughs while V ambushes Big Brother in the bathtub.
Any of those really would work, because here's the dirty secret about Judge Dredd. He's purely a reactionary. He can't anticipate. He can only deal with the fallout. He deals with it well, but that's all he can do. And as a result, he has a pretty terrible record when it comes to stopping, massive terrorist attacks. In the Blockmania story, Mega City 1 is crippled by a plot to release a drug into the water that causes citizens to freak out and start a civil war. It gets so bad that the damn rain gets drugged, and even Dredd is affected by it. Though he does eventually play a role in finding the cure, it's too late. Mega City 1 has been decimated. The judges have been reduced to a fraction of their capacity, and as it turns out, the whole thing was a plot by East Meg 1 to leave Mega City 1 vulnerable to a nuclear attack. This kicks off the Apocalypse War, which ends in the total destruction of both cities. That's the kind of cunning attack that Judge Dredd allowed to happen, and that was with the full support of the legal structure of Mega City 1. Without that structure, V's not going to have any problems doing whatever he wants to Airstrip One, and the only thing Dredd will be able to do is yell, "Drock!
There's an iconic scene in V for Vendetta where V sets up an elaborate arrangement of dominoes while giving a monologue which illustrates how perfectly suited V is to taking down Ingsoc using Dredd himself. While looking at the neatly arranged line of standing dominoes, V says, "Affected most, they understand the least, and understanding when it comes invariably arrives too late. Indeed, they'll not know anything's amiss until they're caught up in that terrible momentum, possibly mistaking it at first for bold, decisive action, some last-minute rally to avert disaster, charging to the rescue. But they are not charging, they are falling. Poor dominoes. Your pretty empire took so long to build. Now, with a snap of history's fingers, down it goes."
That was so beautiful. All right, Judge Dredd, do your fascist cop thing. Yeah, it's like,
Can you just give us like 2.5 minutes of that, Liz, for your opening arguments?
I will take
Do
it.
the whole thing in a Stallone voice.
All right, we may not talk pretty like you fancy Alan Moore characters over there, but it's not going to matter in a couple minutes. So at the start of every issue of Judge Dredd, there's this little caption thing, and they use different phrasing each time, but it's almost always something to the effect of, "In the future, crime is out of control, but fighting against that crime are the judges, the most fearless lawmen of all time, or the toughest lawmen of all time." And then it'll end with something like, "But Judge Dredd is the most feared of them all," or "Judge Dredd is the most skilled of them all," or "Judge Dredd is the bravest of them all." So over the course of like 39 years of all of these little opening captions, Judge Dredd has managed to acquire pretty much every superlative that an action hero could hope for. It comes down to this: the judges are the best of the best, and Judge Dredd is the best of the judges. How many actual real-world cops can you name that are famous? Not famous for like a scandal or a reality TV show, but like
Oh, I was gonna say.
good for being like a good cop. So you talked about Judge Dredd, oh, he can't keep law in his own city. His city is larger than most countries, and he is famous throughout this city for being a super effective lawman. And why is that? Let's look at some stuff. Well, first of all, his gear, awesome, of course, goes without saying. His signature lawgiver pistol has modes for rapid fire, ricochet, armor-piercing, heat-seeking, and of course, high-explosive shots. He's got his Daystick for melee combat and his Widowmaker 2000 for super long-range combat. He has his high-tech bulletproof armor and helmet, and his super advanced armored Lawmaster motorcycle with built-in heavy machine guns. But more impressive than his super cool futuristic gear is the amazing skill with which he wields it. Time and again, Judge Dredd pulls off the most crazy bullshit maneuvers to deal with his enemies and win the day. Here's just one example from one of my favorite early issues of Judge Dredd titled You Bet Your Life. So there's this hyper-violent illegal game show where participants that get questions wrong are killed. It's being broadcast on this illegal pirate TV network. And Judge Dredd finds their secret headquarters, and there's a man in a guillotine who just got a question wrong, and standing ways behind him are the two evil hosts of the game show. So he gets the question wrong, and the blade starts to fall, and then Judge Dredd enters the room after the blade has already started to fall. So he looks up, and then he shoots the falling guillotine blade right in the middle, and it splits in half and flies out of the guillotine, and the two halves fly backward at high speed and impale and kill the two evil game show hosts. So yeah, marksmanship. Also, Judge Dredd is smart, despite what was said by the competition. Just because he has an enormous and magnificent chin does not mean that he is a muscle-headed buffoon. He is highly intelligent, not only when it comes to combat tactics, but also when it comes to noticing and predicting trends in crime and terrorism long before anyone else. After defeating the renegade robot, Call Me Kenneth, all other judges and the public at large believe that this robot attack was an isolated incident. But Judge Dredd knows that Kenneth would become a martyr, and that this was only the beginning of what would eventually become a full-scale robot uprising, far before anyone else in the Grand Hall of Justice believed that such a thing was possible. And guess what? Dredd was right. Dredd's greatest weapon is not his gun, though. It is the fact that he is willing to use his unquestionable authority as a weapon. When pursuing a criminal, he has pretty much unlimited license to do whatever he wants as long as he gets his man. After learning that a group of terrorists that use a massive solar-powered cannon were planning on assassinating him on a particular day at noon, Judge Dredd commanded Megacity 1's weather control station to block out the sun moments before they were planning to fire, which shut down this group's primary weapon. Dredd then attacked and defeated them while they were still reeling from the loss of their cannon. This shows that Dredd knows his city and uses his ultimate authority to transform the city into his greatest weapon against crime, and he is also willing to block out the sun to get his man. It also shows that Judge Dredd is willing to go on the offensive against terrorists and secretly sabotage their schemes before they happen. Another great strength that Judge Dredd has is his ironclad dedication. In his case, more like adamantium-clad. Comic book writer Chris Sims has said about Judge Dredd that Judge Dredd is not built to have regrets. His superpower is 100% conviction in what he is doing. To quote the Judge Dredd 1984 annual, 1984, timely, "For Dredd, there is only one thing in life, the law." In Prague 6, a child who sees Dredd asks his mother, "Why does the judge never smile, Ma?" And his mother replies, "It's his job, child." Judge Dredd has been doing this for 40 years, and he has done freaking everything. Mega City 1 has been reduced to a total war zone on multiple occasions, and time and again, Judge Dredd has been single-handedly responsible for bringing it back from the edge of chaos. Nuclear war, robot uprisings, hyper-intelligent interdimensional zombie tyrants, and xenomorphs. Nothing that V can dish out can compare to the shit that, under Dredd's protection, Mega City 1 has endured and survived. So, in the immortal words of Judge Dredd, yeah.
Okay. V is crackpot crazy. His favorite article of clothing is his tinfoil hat. V is going to arrive in Airstrip One with no authority, no knowledge, and no idea of what he's gonna do. Granted, V did a great job of taking down the British government in his universe. He was only able to do this, though, after living in that horrible system that the government was for multiple years, taking his sweet-ass time to methodically blow up some CCTV cameras, ooh, scary, and eliminate a bunch of sad government officials who were already unsure of what it was that they were doing was even ethical. Let's examine V's kill list. A priest, a radio DJ, some camp guards who didn't even get a chance to put up a fight, and some more administrators. Oh, and buildings. Lots of buildings. V's strength is that his anarchy and his raging against the man or machine is that it is ultimately an idea. Ideas are bulletproof, right? Sure. Men? Not so much. Think of it this way. V is taken down by the chief of New Scotland Yard. I'm sorry for this, who is basically a fat bald man, who hardly looks like he works in the field and could barely run a mile. With just a gun! Imagine when Judge Dredd, who is an administrative cop, a beat cop, a detective, a judge, and an executioner, comes up to him. Judge Dredd is basically Finch, just a way more badass version that has more experience to the nth degree. So V is going to end up in a strange land that he has no ties to. He doesn't have the ability to foster hatred in this limited period of time like he does with Norsefire. And he won't have a protege like Evie whom he can train since he likes to do everything himself. And after Judge Dredd hands down the law to him, he will disappear without being a second thought in anyone's head. So much for his idea. V's craziness and his warped mind will inevitably get the best of him. His strength is taken away from him completely. Dredd, no matter where he is serving, what position he holds, if he's traveled into the freaking future or not, will uphold the law always. He only sleeps for 10-minute intervals. V would rather be planning his latest theatrical architectural explosion while Dredd is focusing on what really matters. Plus, you might think that since V destroyed parts of the British government by turning them against each other or whatever, he'd be able to handle Dredd and the judges with his trickery, either by corrupting the officials or dismantling the system. Well, Dredd has simultaneously handled dealing with criminals and multiple coups from within his own judge division, like the Dark Judges. Whether it was Judge Cal or Judge Grice, Dredd was able to handle their corruption and do his day-to-day patrol at the same time. Judge Dredd for life.
All right.
Ice.
Doom. It's the new Doom.
Doom.
Space. Oh yeah, you know, he fought things from space too.
Yeah,
He covers everything.
Wow. I feel like I'm getting some conflicting information about how badass each character is. So
Conflicting information from Smash Fiction.
I think I'm gonna need to hear some rebooties. So B.
I don't even know where to start with you guys. Like, you're just like the government you're protecting, just like sowing misinformation left and right,
Yeah.
far as the eye can see.
I hope you find freedom in your slavery.
Indeed.
Fascism, smashism.
Here's
Smash fascism.
here's the first thing I want to address. So you guys brought up the fact that in the comic, V is ultimately killed by Inspector Finch. When he encounters Finch in the subway tunnels, which are his headquarters, he gets shot and V dies. If you had read past that point in the comic, you would realize that that was all part of V's plan. Finch himself afterwards says that he has seen V move. V is like greased lightning, and there is no way that Finch should have been able to shoot him. And V's whole plan was for Finch to know that he had shot and mortally wounded V, so that when V shows up later, even though it's Evie in disguise as V, Finch's whole worldview is shaken, along with the worldview of everyone in the country who had been told that V was dead. V turned his own death into the instrument of that country's downfall, and he succeeded.
Why not just like blood packets would have done the same thing? You know, I mean, I think his mental instability might make it so that it's not necessarily helping him all the time. And as far as I know, even if we kill V, then we win. So
Not if you kill V and his death sparks the revolution.
Yeah, but
I
the thing is, this isn't V versus the government. This is V versus Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd was able to stop a world war. He will have no problem stopping a terrorist cultural uprising. He stopped
He stopped
world
multiple
war.
revolutions and uprisings in his city's past.
So this is perfect if he's dead too. He's getting double whammy. He'll stop it
Now-
and he'll stop V.
The other thing about this, though, is that the only reason that Finch was able to even track V down at all and find his hideout was that Finch was able to think like V, to put himself in V's shoes. Dan, wasn't there an acid trip involved?
There was an acid trip involved, Miles. Finch actually described these schemes as being as ingenious as they are irrational. And Finch realized that if he was going to crack the case and figure out what V's plans were, he had to get inside V's head, and that involved him traveling to the concentration camp that created V, taking LSD, and then going on this crazy trip through the English countryside until he randomly ended up at V's headquarters and everything sort of fell into place. Now, Judge Dredd is utterly incapable of thinking like a criminal. He is.
It would be anathema to him.
And
he wouldn't even want to if he could.
And also, he would never take drugs. Like this,
he's not dropping LSD.
He's from a world where they will like prosecute with.
He's too busy shooting drugs.
He's
just like with his gun.
Exactly. He comes from a world where they will prosecute someone with multiple life sentences for jaywalking. You think he's going to take the time to lower himself to taking drugs, even if that's the only way he can catch V? No, he never would. He's incapable of thinking like V, and that's the only way you can track down V.
Or you can just track him down and shoot him.
And if every like detective or investigator had to take drugs in order to solve a crime, no, you do not need to do that.
They do when they go up
Like
against
when you're up
someone like
against
V.
V.
V is so intensely brilliant.
So you're telling me that in the almost like, what, 50 plus years, how many years has Dredd been fighting crime? You think all that exposure to criminals, he wouldn't sort of know how to think like a criminal? He would.
He's never demonstrated that ability or even the desire to do so. And frankly, you're right about the 40, 50 years being a judge thing. He's old, man. Dude's over the hill. It's even been mentioned in recent appearances by Judge Dredd in comics how old he's
Yes,
getting.
Well, I mean, V is dead too, so
I believe he currently has a cancer of the duodenum.
That's right.
No, he does, but yeah.
It's benign.
But you know what? You know all the crazy futuristic technology they got going on? You know how long people live in the future? It's not a problem.
If we're doing V alive, we can do Dredd at his peak.
Crazy futuristic technology aside, you're not going to be able to just shoot your way out of this one. That's the point. Colin, it was really nice hearing your story about how he did that really awesome trick at the game show. It was still using his gun to shoot bullets, and that's not going to be a solution in this case. You can't just take V down that way. I don't care how many rebellions he's crushed.
To put together clues and figure out the secret hideouts of villains and figure out what their plans are ahead of time. Like,
never this smart, and you're not correct when you say he has ultimate authority. Because he doesn't. He has to obey his superiors, he has to follow the law, and he has also repeatedly shown aversion to being the ultimate authority when he turned down the role of chief judge.
Yes, but he's also willing to do what it takes to bring criminals to justice. And like I said, for the purposes of this, we don't know specifically where V is hiding, so I can't say, oh, he's going to figure it out this way. But I mean, with people like Call Me...
And you never will know where V is hiding.
Yeah. But, we've talked about Call Me Kenneth or whatever, who was another revolutionary leader, and he learned where Call Me Kenneth's base was and actually went undercover as an android and pretended to be an android that was wearing a judge's uniform and slipped in past the robots and worked his way there. And so he can infiltrate, he can do all that stuff, he can bring criminals to justice, all that sort of...
Not good enough.
And Judge Death, you want to talk about threatening villains? How about an actually immortal, super intelligent, crazy, sadistic zombie who travels through dimension?
He didn't beat Judge Death. Anderson did.
They beat Judge Death together.
No, they did not. He was lying on the ground with a flaming pitchfork in him.
All right.
We're
Moral
going to say
support.
it's just Dredd in this match anyway.
Yeah, I'd like to make one particular point. Liz, you mentioned rather flippantly that V manages to kill a priest and a radio DJ, and oh, how impressive that is. But what you're missing is the fact that V psychologically terrorized those people to a ridiculous degree before, yes, he killed them. Now, keep in mind, most people did not even know who Louis Prothero was. They thought his voice was the voice of fate, was the voice of the computer system. V not only figured out who he was, but he figured out that Prothero's biggest sort of obsession was his doll collection. And using that knowledge, he constructed this elaborate set and put Prothero's dolls in the furnace of the concentration camp. And basically, by the time he was finished with Prothero was catatonic. That's the level of psychological manipulation that Dredd is dealing with. And Dredd is a much easier target for V to analyze than Louis Prothero or anyone else in V for Vendetta was.
In other words, call me Kenneth can kiss my ass.
Final response to that, Judge Dredd's will, as we've seen, is incredibly great. The fact that V could get into his head is utter nonsense. And also, you talk about V being this like awesome, super cool terrorist. Overthrowing this government has to be his entire life's mission. As we said, he spends years doing it, and he still has to die in the process in order to make this happen. And where you think about like all of the terrorists that Dredd has taken down, all of the, rebellions that he has taken down.
All of the terrorist attacks he's allowed to happen, yes.
I can point to specific ones that he has stopped. There's the terrorist who is using the dream simulator to act out all of his crimes ahead of time so he can keep practicing them, and then Dredd puts together the pieces about him and finds the dream simulator and goes into the dream simulator and views all of the plans that he's doing ahead of time to put himself in the head of the terrorist, figure out what his plans are, figure out he's attacking
But the nuclear war, he can't do anything about. Can't do anything about the Soviet plot.
You know what?
I'm just saying.
Okay.
His entire city got burned to the ground.
And then he brought it back. It's still standing at the end. After V kills himself to blow up some building, the city and its people will still be standing, and Judge Dredd will rebuild everything and bring it back from chaos, and it'll be fine. And V will be dead and forgotten, like all the other terrorists and wannabe criminals that Judge Dredd has defeated.
Dead, maybe, but never forgotten.
All right.
Remember the 28th of September.
Nope. All of that stuff that V did, it was actually just a misprint. So he has been vaporized.
All right. Judge Dredd, you gonna take that?
I just want to continue with some V bashing. Dan, again, you mentioned my flippant statement.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Super
again,
flippant.
the people he's psychologically manipulating and talking into committing suicide are all really vulnerable people. They're people who are kind of questioning what they're doing, like, oh, I don't know if this is good or not. This guy's telling me it's not. Yeah, I'm probably a bad person. They're all like vulnerable and stuff. Judge Dredd is not like that at all. He will.
He actually is.
No.
He's questioned his position numerous times. He's questioned what he's doing on numerous occasions, and he has actually, on multiple occasions, resigned.
Yeah, but he's never...
Because over moral differences in principle with the law.
Yes.
He's
Well, when
certainly
he has-
never committed suicide, though.
Yet.
He has done so when the law is his greatest enemy, when the people in positions of power are the greatest threat to his city.
Yeah,
He's
the corruption.
And I have no doubt that the government of 1984 is super corrupt, but a far greater threat at the present is V. And I'm sure that after V is dead, at some point, Dredd will resign or work to reform the corrupt Orwellian government that he is in. But for right now, V is the current and present danger, and he's not going to be distracted by his differences of opinion with the government.
To address what my point was when I made that point originally, I do think that whether or not V could psychologically terrorize Dredd in the same way that he did, Louis Prothero and everyone else in Northfire is a matter of some debate. My bigger point was to show how well V understands his targets. Again, Louis Prothero was a private figure and one whose identity was not even known to the public. But V understood him so well that he was able to manipulate him in that way. Dredd is not a subtle dude. He's a very public figure, and he makes his intentions very clear. V will be able to read him like a flashing neon sign.
So what is he going to find out about him?
He's going to
find out
with that.
He has no friends and just like an annoying robot named Walter and a cleaning lady named Maria who he does not care about any of these people. And like that's what he's going to figure out. And that, this guy cannot be reasoned with. He's just a freaking machine.
Yeah, and
he cares about Anderson.
And V is going to take like 4 years to do all this as well.
There's no time limit on this.
Is there a time limit? Like,
no time limit.
Dredd's gonna catch him before he can start writing down his ideas.
Yeah.
More likely is that V is going to manipulate Dredd into attacking his own government.
Yeah, but the thing is Dredd's dealt with situations like that.
Right? Then they,
Yeah. Dredd has dealt with corrupt officials all the time, and luckily, since Dredd is judge, jury, executioner, he does not have to deal with any red tape that you were mentioning earlier in your argument.
Right.
Like,
yes, he does. He deals with red tape.
No. If the government is getting corrupt and V is also a threat, there is no more red tape.
Here's one thing I was going to throw in. You mentioned that, like, oh, he got stopped by these, like, fat cat criminals who were using the law as a weapon. You're right that Judge Dredd doesn't break the law. But the thing is V going to send lawyers after him? No, because V is not...
V is a master of manipulating the existing system. So, yes, it's entirely possible he could do
But
that.
V is not a public figure who is going to be, like, having this public legal business that he's like, oh, my blowing up of this parade was perfectly legal, you know, or whatever's going on. He's not going to use lawyers and like this legal system as a weapon. He's just going to be a criminal who lives in secrecy.
Well, again, the overall point was that Dredd's thinking is limited. He must keep himself within the constraints of the law to stay within his own principles.
Not when he fundamentally disagrees with it.
Okay, well, we don't know how he's going to react to the fucking government of
And
1984,
again,
so let's just table
and
that.
to your point, Colin, about V not being able to use lawyers specifically, I think the bigger point is that within about 3 or 4 years, V, as I mentioned, gets so good at hacking that he takes over the central government computer. He can manipulate the more primitive government of the world of 1984 in his sleep. Dredd will find himself butting up continuously against so many different aspects of the system, it will be a wonder if he can even leave his house.
Since Dredd only sleeps for 10 minutes in his house a day, I don't think we have to worry about that.
But
He probably doesn't even need to sleep in his own bed.
yeah, he Judge Dredd sleeps while riding his motorcycle. Half his brain at a time.
Judge Dredd does not get his spells back when he rests for the night.
Yeah, you need at least 6 hours for that stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was 8 hours.
Well, in newer editions, it's 6.
That explains why it's been so long since he's casted a Melth's acid arrow.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah, it was in the first issue. He threw off a magic missile, and then just nothing, nothing since then.
So anyway, what was my one last point? Oh yeah,
I don't know. D&D references.
yes. Okay. So you talked about V being able to learn how the system works and manipulate it, and you are correct. But the thing about Dredd is that Dredd knows his city like a spider knows its web. And
He's not in his city.
this is his city now. We're assuming that if he's in this position of power, that he's spent at least a couple years on the force. If V has his time to prepare all his awesome, elaborate plans, then Judge Dredd has time to rise up through the ranks and learn every street in his city and learn everything about it.
To know
And
who's who.
he is able to notice trends and predict trends in crime and see who the threatening players are and notice when things aren't just coincidences or aren't just isolated incidents, like we mentioned with, noticing uprisings and things like that happening. So I think it's the sort of thing where the first time that V has some sort of crime, everybody's gonna be like, oh, I guess it was just some weird mugging or just some weird, gas leak. And Dredd's gonna be like, no, there's something else going on here. And he's gonna be the one like, gas leaks don't do whatever this just did, So,
Oh yeah, V always makes it sound like a gas leak when he's playing the fucking 1812 orchestra.
V doesn't have a protege this time around. You guys haven't mentioned anything about that. The idea of V is an idea. Like, that's part of why his plan is so strong. He knows, like, what he's doing will help build up more anarchy in the future. That's not happening here. Like, he just doesn't have that same kind of connection here, even if he's been here for so long. He wasn't in some sort of crazy concentration camp in this setting, so I think that takes away a lot from his character and his strength.
yeah, ideas are bulletproof, but as we said, he's not.
I think Julia could totally be that person for V in this instance. I think Julia would fill that role.
Mhm.
I think you motherfuckers need to pull out some umbrellas because.
I don't know that that's. I
Oh
don't
wait,
know.
maybe that's not safe.
That's probably not wise. I think we probably need to go inside
You
or
mean
like lie down
Go inside
away
some
from
water?
trees. Yes.
Yeah, just jump in the lake over there. That's good, safe. Anyway, oh my god!
The weather
What is
control
it?
station isn't working.
Man, you are really drawing out this intro, kid.
Yeah, what is it, kid?
I'm not afraid of the lightning.
All right, lightning round.
Like all that time that you made up for in the setup,
I know,
like all
dude.
that time that you saved, you just wasted all of it.
In an attempt to lose the vicious judge, V flees into an abandoned construction site in a proletarian neighborhood. All seems quiet, and the revolutionary begins to think he's safe, when suddenly a spacecraft bursts through the night's thick dark clouds and makes a crash landing nearby. V stealthily moves closer to investigate and discovers a wounded alien emerging from the heavily damaged ship. The extraterrestrial is centaur-like, with short blue fur covering most of its body. and does not appear to have a mouth.
Oh boy.
V also finds that the alien has an extra pair of eyes on the ends of stalks atop its head.
Yeah, we know what it is.
Wait,
we know what it is.
What?
Though he notices this only after one has scribbled a point in his direction. A voice begins speaking in his mind. It introduces itself as the Andalite prince named Elfangor, who has come to warn of a threat to humanity even greater than itself. He speaks of a parasitic race of tyrannical aliens called Yerks, who managed to intercept and shoot down his ship. Their invasion will be slow to start, but Elfangor is dying. The only option left to him is to grant V the ability to morph into any creature he touches by absorbing its DNA. The Andalite holds out a glowing blue cube, and, with a touch, V is granted its gift.
Oh my god.
The faint sound of a boot on gravel alerts V to Dredd's presence, allowing him to dodge a moment before his gunshot simultaneously destroys the silence and the Andalite. The white fox mask once again disappears into the night's thick shadows, leaving Judge Dredd to attempt to piece together why the anarchist lingered here. His eyes scan over the ship and what is left of the alien, but ultimately fall on the cube, now emitting only a faint and flickering blue glow. The street judge picks up the cube and receives its gift before the light finally fades away. So yeah, your characters now have the power to morph into any creature they touch.
I don't know what this is.
Animorph.
I can't believe you guys knew it right away. It took me a minute. I was going like, wait, I know this.
Yeah.
What is? Oh shit!
I had it from
Still don't know what it
construction
is.
sites.
Tell me what it is.
Yeah, pretty much.
When these nerds stop talking. All right, for all of you that didn't read Animorphs, if you stay morphed for over 2 hours, you're stuck in that form. However, when you're morphed, you can communicate telepathically, and morphing heals almost all injuries. You have to touch a living creature, so the creatures you guys pick have to be feasible. What are your characters' most useful morphs and why? How did they use them to complement their established modus operandi? Think about combat, flight, swimming, and stealth, for example. But most of all, be creative. The Animorphs did a lot of crazy shit in their series. Now, appeal to my love of animals!
Fox! We turn into a fox!
Damn it!
That seems way more appropriate for me, but anyway.
Charmander.
Okay, well,
So
obviously...
why wouldn't you say Godzilla if you were going to be bullshitting?
Cthulhu!
He's on the other
Cthulhu,
side of the
Cthulhu.
world.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Tentacles!
So, I think, of course, Judge Dredd's most favored form is going to be an eagle. The golden eagle of justice, with which he will soar high above his city to monitor anything going on with that. I think that for a combat morph, he's probably going to just go with something kind of big and scary, pure brute force, like probably a lion, because he wants, the majestic and the golden and all that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if Dredd would be a lion. Lions are kind of lazy. I think he would be like a leopard. Leopards are very lithe and they're great hunters. I mean, they can pull shit into trees and they can be really stealthy and they blend in, which lends, Dredd's gone undercover a few times. Their spots will break up their silhouette on the horizon. They can stalk through some lowland grass.
Good for climbing up skyscrapers as a leopard.
Yes, because they climb up the trees. And the guy's a pretty strong dude. He needs to stash a body, pick it up a skyscraper tree.
I'm sure that similarly to how Judge Dredd, whenever he gets a new piece of technology, will train himself in it immensely. He's an expert with his motorcycle and his gun and everything like that. He'll be very methodical in learning how to use his new morphing powers to the best of their ability, and he will research which animals will have the best capabilities for himself. Probably learn to be a little insect for stealthing and sneaking around and observation and all that stuff. Be a happy little golden retriever walking down the street, blending in with crowds and getting pets.
And I think his final ultimate form would be a mountain goat or a ram, because he needs to find an animal form that matches his super fashionable helmet and pair of horns. He would be running into things and use that hard helmet of his to bash some heads in.
And I think, of course, once he gets really good at the morphing, he's going to learn how to do the combination morphs that they eventually learned how to do in Animorphs, where he can just sprout golden eagle wings from his back at all times, and have the lower legs of a leopard and that kind of thing, and basically just becomes like weird human-animal hybrid of all of the most majestic animals in nature.
I believe
A
you
liger.
speak of the Frolith maneuver,
That's the one, yeah.
which I 100% did not have to look up. because I am that big of a nerd.
Yes, and of course, all down his back will be a horse mane, because, as we all know, horses are the most majestic of nature's creatures.
And they can run really fast, so
That too.
they're useful.
I think we're good. I don't know, closing thoughts, Liz?
I don't know if any of you have been to the San Diego Zoo, but Dredd could also be a cheetah because they pair the cheetahs with Arctic foxes. So he would be a friend to all foxes because foxes, foxes, space.
If the audience doesn't know, I really like foxes. So that's what Liz is doing.
Okay, well, as we all know, V has a certain obsession with things that start with the letter V. So I feel like his stealth morph would probably be either a
Vulture.
vole or a viper. I think his flying morph would probably be a vulture, as Liz said. His swimming morph would probably be a Velez ray, which is an obscure species of manta ray. Or, well, it's a ray of some sort. I don't know if it's a manta ray.
I picture V going through an encyclopedia like,
Yes, absolutely.
please let there be some good aquatic animal with V. Yes, it's a ray. Cool.
That's right. In terms of his combat morph, he really wants to get a velociraptor. But seeing as how that's probably not available to him, he's going to break his pattern slightly and instead go with his love of Shakespeare. Because as everyone knows, the most famous stage direction from a Shakespeare play is exit pursued by a bear. And therefore, V will take a grizzly bear as his combat morph. However, all of these animal morphs are secondary to what V will actually be using these powers for. As we see in Animorphs, you can use the power to acquire humans as well. So V will increase his already considerable espionage skills by acquiring increasingly high-ranking members of Ingsoc government, including perhaps Judge Dredd himself. And basically,
If he can touch him.
That would have to be
being able to take down
The only
the government.
spot is that chin. That's all that's uncovered. He's got to touch that
It's
chin.
a big chin.
As soon as V basically is able to become any member of the government will not live to see 1985.
I'm going to go in a slightly different direction than you on this one, Dan. I'm getting a little nostalgic here. I believe this is the first time that we have had you and I against Colin and Liz with Kit as the judge since the very first episode of Smash Fiction.
Is that true?
I believe it is.
No. Archer versus Samson was that setup.
Oh, fuck you. This is still...
Sorry.
Trying to have a beautiful moment.
All right, no. Don't let me destroy your dreams. Go
This
ahead.
is still a callback to the first
Of
episode
course.
of Smash Fiction, which means it would be wrong of me to not bring up the mantis shrimp. So I think that the mantis shrimp would be huge for V, not only because of the range of vision it would give him, but also the boxing shit, dude.
Yep.
Also, devious and deadly is what I think the morphs that V would go for if he couldn't find the alliterative ones. So, for example, his flying morph might be the cuckoo, which would allow him to, mimic the voices of others and kind of fool Dredd that way. Another possibility for the flying morph, how about a mosquito? How you like that dengue fever, Judge Dredd?
How
you like that?
My freaking bug spray, bitch.
Yeah, well, whatever. You'd be flying around majestically like a fucking eagle, and it'll just be a quick sting. You won't know it was there.
Any other final points?
No, that's it for us.
All right. Well, I think I have to go deliberate. So be mean to each other.
So it occurred to me
Dredd.
that although Winston isn't, doesn't even start with a V, W is one off. And in French, the term for W is actually double-V, which is double V. So maybe he'd let him slide.
Wait.
I'm sorry, what was your point?
Your argument makes no sense,
Oh, good.
you little girl,
Oh, good.
All right, just had to get French out of the way. All right, cool.
Are you aware that one of the advocates I've been attempting to get on the show is from France?
I hope you come on our show. We love you.
Oh, God.
Happy 5th of November, everyone, because keeping this going with our holiday themed, right?
That's right.
28th of September.
That's the one. I mean, the other thing, there's a holiday mentioned in Judge Dredd called Justice Day,
Of
which I
course there
enjoyed
is.
a lot, and I could not.
I would like
find-
to think. I would like to think that every day on Judge Dredd's calendar is labeled Justice Day.
Mark Justice Day. Yeah, that could be true. Maybe like it wasn't an actual holiday, and Judge Dredd's like, it's Justice Day. So I think from now on, we'll say that the 28th of February is officially Justice Day, because it does not say. Well, I guess we'll find out when Kit gets back whether or not the 28th of February is Justice Day or Anarchy Day.
Revolution Day.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't even know, because after the friggin' anarchists come, there's not going to be any calendars or dates or anything.
Yeah,
You
no
just-
parties.
Yeah.
So we had this set up for, you said Brock Archer?
Yeah,
Okay, and we won Brock Archer,
we did,
right?
but we lost
So-
Terminator Predator.
So this is the rubber match.
I guess so, yeah. This is the tiebreaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-oh. I'm not liking our chances.
Hey, man, uphold the law.
We
Don't
is
give
the
in to
law.
The anarchy.
I am the law.
Who is that?
I am the law.
I'm going with Popeye Dredd.
Popeye Dredd? Oh, I am the law. I am.
That's pretty good.
I am, and I am, and I am Dredd.
Speaking of guys with really
They both have
impressive
nice.
chins,
Yeah, I was gonna say they both have good chins. I'm
You think
upset
if
that
you
Carl
rolled-
Urban didn't have like an enormous prosthetic chin in that.
he did a good job though. He had the perpetual angry
Oh,
frown at
Yeah,
all
he
times.
was so great,
Yeah,
so great. I love that movie so much. I can't
Yeah,
even
it was pretty great.
I like the V for Vendetta movie better than the actual book, personally.
get out.
Uh,
Get out.
Yeah, that's...
I have to disagree with you, but like I do think it was a very good movie.
Look, Colin, it's not my fault you listen to too much Chris fucking Sims, alright? I like him too, but he's wrong about that movie. For so many reasons. What were we talking about?
Your curmudgeonliness.
We were not. Stop lying to me.
Pretty
Well,
sure.
Nah, man.
we were talking about it. You may not have been.
Hang on, let me go over the minutes. Let's see. Justice Day, Anarchy Day. Miles is a big old grump. Yeah, there it is, right there, right there. 5 minutes.
No,
Miles is a
seriously.
big old grump. So
The fact...
anyone else? I'm gonna say motion to uphold Miles's big old grump status.
I'll fucking show you a big old grunt. in a few
Aye.
minutes.
All in favor? All right. All opposed?
Well, I would like Miles to
Hey.
not be a grump, but
Liz, you just voted twice against yourself. I think you're already going to the anarchy side.
I think
Okay,
all of
good
these
point.
matches end in anarchy pretty much
Yeah.
no matter what happens. So
I've returned.
How long have you been sitting there?
Oh,
I wanted to listen to your banter. I did think about it for a long time before I decided to check on this. You guys did not make it easy on me. It was a really complicated match to imagine in my mind. There's a lot of like, no, it's this way. No, it's this way. But I mean, what is this podcast if not
That.
nonsensical contradictions?
More yelling.
Less thinking. In the end, though the other team did very, very well, I think the person that's going to come out on top is V.
Yes. V for victory.
Oh,
this is
I
awful.
was so worried about that.
Ugh.
you guys did a very good job researching. I was very
Ugh.
impressed by your arguments.
Well,
I
thank you.
had my whole, like, opening sentence about how, like, I was totally not worried after reading Judge Dredd. Yeah, that was not true.
Yeah.
I was really worried.
Absolutely.
How the hell did you guys not bring up the fact that he put his fist through that guy's head that one time?
Yeah, that's like the
I thought-
Judge Dredd panel.
Oh no, I just liked the guillotine blade one. That's my
No,
favorite.
that was a really cool one. Honestly,
Dude, he screams, "Gaze into the fist of Dredd."
Yeah. Well, no, because the dude says gaze into the face
The
of
face
fear,
of fear.
and then
yeah.
he says gaze into the fist of Dredd and punches him through the head. His fist emerges on the other side of his skull.
Oh man, I wish I had brought that up. Well, then he's gonna punch me through the head. Like,
Yep.
thank you for listening to Smash Fiction. Next week, we'll be releasing the 3rd episode of Extraordinary League. And the week after, hold on to your panties, because it's Deadpool versus Dante Sparta.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his work at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow the Smash Fiction Podcast on Twitter at SmashFicPodcast and search for us on Facebook and Tumblr.
Subscribe on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight. You may not know this, but the most toxic animal on the planet is Clostridium botulinum.
Do you know what it is?
Yes! Clostridium botulinum, which is a bacterium that, if 1 teaspoon of it was properly distributed, it could kill every single human being in the United States, according to list.com.
Is this bacteriomorphs or is this anamorphs?
Yeah,
It's an animal, damn it.
They're talking about humans and bacteria
actually,
and shit.
unfortunately, bacteria are not animals. They're not in that kingdom.
Yes, it is.
No, bacteria are not animals.
No.
Yes, it is.
They're a life form, but they are not animals.
That's bullshit.
And furthermore,
I
trans.
didn't make science, sir.
Furthermore, possession
you
of
did.
an
Make
illegal
it change.
biological substance